out of Egypt. And so there were probably 2 to 2.5 million people that went across the Red Sea and out into the wilderness. And there they went up on the mountain, and Moses went up on the mountain, and what did God do?
Give them the 10 Commandments.
Gave them a
Law.
law. And so now he comes down from the mountain with the law the second time that he had written himself now, chiseled out on the rocks. He comes down with the law for the people. Now they have to have a land. God intended for them to go into the promised land immediately. He intended it for them to go up to the promised land and to enter the land and to go take it. He says, I've given you this land. But the people went in the land, and they came back with the 12 spies went in. They came back, and 10 of them said,
We can't do it.
we can't do this. Why?
Because they are giants.
The people are giants in the land. The cities are walled cities and the huge walls. But they said, the land flows with
Milk and honey.
milk and honey, and they brought back a huge piece of grapes had to be carried between 2 men on a pole. It was that big. 2 of them came back and said, we can take the land. The other 10 said, no, we can't. So God said, everyone 20 years old and older is going to have to die in this wilderness. Only your children are going to be able to go into the land. There's the biblical age for accountability right there. You got that? Only those 20 years old and older God considered guilty of the sin of not going into the land. All of those 19 and under could go. All right. So, let's look at Deuteronomy chapter 33 verse 4. Deuteronomy 33 verse 4, Alana. Martha, Psalm 147, 19 and 20. Go ahead. 33, 4.
Okay. When Moses commanded us a law as a possession for the assembly of Jacob.
The law was for who?
Us.
The assembly of who?
Jacob.
Just for Jacob's family. Just for Jacob's family. Psalms 147, 19 and 20.
Someone.
147, 19 and 20.
Psalms 147?
He has revealed his word to Jacob, his law and decrees to Israel. He has done this for no other nation. They do not know his law.
No other nation at all is part of the nation of Israel. The law was just for them. You see that? So, now, on the last page of your lesson sheet, you have the law is given by God through Moses. First one is Exodus 20 through 24. We're going to read all of that so that you'll be able to understand this. Mark, I'd like for you to read chapter 20. Rick, I'd like for you to read chapter 21. Kathy, I want you to read 22. Joanne, you read 23. And you're going to read 24.
We're reading the whole chapter.
A whole chapter. Read it.
Woo-hoo. We should have skipped the reading for this.
Yeah, you should have. Hurry, read.
And
20.
God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers and the children to the third and the fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor to do all your work, but on the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter or your male servant or your female servant or your livestock or the sojourner who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth and sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land that the Lord God is giving you. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, you shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. Now when all the people saw the thunder and the flashes of lightning and the sound of the trumpet and the mountain smoking, the people were afraid and trembled, and they stood far off and said to Moses, You speak to us, and we will listen, but do not let God speak to us, lest we die. Moses said to the people, Do not fear, for God has come to test you, that the fear of him may be before you, that you may not sin. The people stood far off, while Moses drew near to the thick darkness where God was. And the Lord said to Moses, Thus you shall say to the people of Israel, You have seen for yourselves that I have talked with you from heaven. You shall not make gods of silver to be with me, nor shall you make for yourself gods of gold. An altar of earth you shall make for me a sacrifice, and sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, your sheep and your oxen. In every place where I cause my name to be remembered, I will come to you and bless you. If you make me an altar of stone, you shall not build it of hewn stones, for if you wield your tool on it, you profane it. And you shall not go up by steps to my altar, that your nakedness may not be exposed
Now,
on it.
the reason we're reading 21, 2, and 3, and 4 is because that's the whole law. That's all the law. The law was not just chapter 20. The law is all of this. And I want you to see it clearly. God's giving them a law for the whole nation of people. And some of you may have never read this, but you need to understand this. Rick?
Now these are the rules that you shall set before them. When you buy a Hebrew slave, he shall serve 6 years, and in the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. If he comes in single, he shall go out single. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out alone. But if the slave plainly says, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free, then his master shall bring him to God, and he shall bring him to the door or the doorpost. And his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall be his slave forever. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she shall not go out as the male slaves do. If she does not please her master, who has designated her for himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to a foreign people, since he has broken faith with her. If he designates her for his son, he shall deal with her as with a daughter. If he takes another wife to himself, he shall not diminish her food, her clothing, or her marital rights. And if he does not do these 3 things for her, she shall go out for nothing, without
Okay, now,
payment of money.
Let's read chapter 22, 1 through 10. 9.
If a man steals an ox or a sheep and slaughters it or sells it, he shall pay 5 oxen for the ox and 4 sheep for the sheep. If a thief is caught while breaking in and is struck so that he dies, there will be no blood guiltiness on his account. But if the sun has risen on him, there will be blood guiltiness on his account. He shall surely make restitution
Restitution.
Yeah, restitution. If he holds nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. If what he stole is actually found alive in his possession, whether an ox or a donkey or a sheep, he shall pay double. If a man lets a field or vineyard be grazed bare, and lets his animal loose so that it grazes in another man's field, he shall make restitution from the best of his own field and the best of his own vineyard. If a fire breaks out and spreads to the thorn bushes so that stacked grain or the standing grain or the field itself is consumed, he who started the fire shall surely make restitution. If a man gives his neighbor money or goods to keep for him and is stolen from the man's house, if the thief is caught, he shall pay double. If the thief is not caught, then the owner of the house shall appear before the judges to determine whether he laid his hands on his neighbor's property. For every breach of trust, whether it is for the ox, for donkey, for sheep, for clothing, or for any lost thing about which one says, this is it. The case of both parties shall come before the judges. He whom the judges condemn shall pay double to his neighbor.
Okay, chapter 21, Hebrew servants, all the laws concerning your servants. Chapter 21, 12 through the end of the chapter talks about personal injuries and all of the conditions of the law for personal injuries. Now we're talking about the protection of property. That's what Kathy read. And then the next chapter, the end of this chapter is social responsibilities. Kathy, read 16 through 21.
If a man seduces a virgin who is not engaged and lies with her, he must pay a dowry for her to be his wife. If the father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he shall pay money equal to the dowry for virgins. You shall not allow a sorceress to live. Whoever lies with an animal shall surely be put to death. He who sacrifices to any god other than the Lord alone shall be utterly destroyed. You shall not wrong a stranger or oppress him, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You shall not afflict any widow or orphan. If you afflict him at all, and he does not cry out to me, I will surely hear his cry, and my anger will be kindled, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall become widows, and your children fatherless.
All right. Chapter 23, starting out laws of justice and mercy. Go ahead and read down through verse 9.
Okay. Do not spread false reports. Do not help a wicked man by being a malicious witness. Do not follow the crowds in doing wrong. When you give testimony in a lawsuit, do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd, and do not show favoritism to a poor man in his lawsuit. If you come across your enemy's ox or donkey wandering off, be sure to take it back to him. If you see the donkey of someone who hates you fallen down under its load, do not leave it there. Be sure you help him with it. Do not deny justice to your poor people in their lawsuits. Have nothing to do with false charges, and do not put an innocent or honest person to death, for I will not acquit the guilty. Do not accept a bribe, for the bribe blinds those who see and twists the words of the righteous. Do not oppress an alien. You yourselves know how it feels to be aliens, because you were aliens in Egypt.
Then he has the Sabbath laws, and then the 3 annual feast days that they have. And then let's read verse 20 through verse 26. Joanne.
Okay. Through 26?
Yeah.
20 through
See,
26.
I'm sending an angel ahead of you to guard you along the way and to bring you to the place I have prepared. Pay attention to him and listen to what he says. Do not rebel against him. He will not forgive your rebellion, since my name is in him. If you listen carefully to what he says and do all that I say, I will be an enemy to your enemies and will oppose those who oppose you. My angel will go ahead of you and bring you into the land of the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, and I will wipe them out. Do not bow down to their gods or worship them or follow their practices. You must demolish them and break their sacred stones to pieces. Worship the Lord your God, and his blessings will be on your food and water. I will take away sickness from among you, and none will miscarry or be barren in your land. I will give you a full lifespan.
What is God telling them?
If you follow me, I'll take care of you.
If you follow me, I'm taking you into the land, and I am going to give you this land. I'm going to get rid of your enemies. God says, I'm doing this. This angel I'm sending with you will take care of this. They didn't believe him. They didn't believe him. And they said, we cannot take... They were looking at themselves instead of God. And people are doing that today with their sin. Looking at themselves instead of God. Looking at how reproachable they feel to their own selves. They don't understand that God says there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Isn't that wonderful to know that? We need to believe these things because God has said it. He told them, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give you the land. I'm going to take it. I'm going to dispossess all these people. And they didn't believe him.
And you wonder why, when they were following an angel, why they wouldn't have believed that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Now read 31 through the end of the chapter.
31.
Yes?
I will establish your borders of the Red Sea and to the Sea of the Philistines, and from the desert to the river. I will hand over to you the people who live in the land, and you will drive them out before you. Do not make a covenant with them or with their gods. Do not let them live in your land, or they will cause you to sin against me, because the worship of their gods will certainly be a snare to you.
God says, I'm going to give you this land. You're going to take the land. It's going to be done. I'm giving you all of this. And he says, don't you leave any of the people. What you discover is they go into the land, and when they get tired, they quit. And they leave all of those people in the land who become a real snare to them. It's a terrible thing. Okay, chapter 24. This is the confirmation of the covenant with these people. Daphne, I'd like for you to read 1 through 8.
Okay. Then he said to Moses, come up to the Lord, you and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and you shall worship at a distance. Moses alone, however, shall come near to the Lord, but they shall not come near, nor shall the people come up with him. Then Moses came and recounted to the people all the words of the Lord, and all the ordinances, and all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which the Lord has spoken we will do. And Moses wrote down all the words of the Lord. Then he arose early in the morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain with 12 pillars for the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent young men of the sons of Israel, and they offered burnt offerings and sacrificed young bulls as peace offerings to the Lord. And Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and the other half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. Then he took the book of the covenant and read it in the hearing of the people, and they said, all that the Lord has spoken we will do, and we will be obedient. So Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, behold the blood of the covenant, which the Lord has made with you in accordance with all these words.
All right. God has ratified the covenant with blood now. And Moses reads this, all of this, to these people. They all know this. He reads it to them, all of it. And they say, we'll obey this, we'll do this. They don't. When before they get 50 miles from where they are now, they start complaining. And they test God and test God and test God and test God. Isn't that terrible? Are we guilty of the same things?
Yes.
Oh, yes, we are. You know what? God is so merciful to us,
Amen.
so gracious and so kind. And He's given us a law that's so easy for us to follow. Oh, it's so easy for us to follow. And we can, without any concern for our well-being, be confident that God is going to take